Hi folks, thanks for joining me for this week's still water tutorial. What you see in the vise is a fly I call the Kettle Buster, and I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go through the video. So without further ado, let's get into it. In the vise then is a Hanak H260 barbless hook. This one's at size 10. It's on a heavy wire hook and it's in black nickel. The thread I'm going to be using today is the Veevus. It's the F01. It's at 6/0 and as you can see it's a black thread. First thing I'm going to do is just get a little bit of wax onto my thread to get me started, and my wax is just starting to disintegrate there. Need to get another slip out. So I've just run my fingers through it to get off a load of the excess, and I'm just going to catch in behind the eye, and I'll run a loose bit of thread up the shank of the hook. It doesn't need to be touching turns or particularly neat. I'm going to stop it approximately where a barb would be on a hook, and then I can remove my rat's tail. Now I'm going to have a marabou tail on this fly, as you've seen, and I'm going to be using the Comp Candy. This is the Blackjack Marabou, and I've already got a feather that I've been working with here. Now I use a particular measurement so I get some consistency with my flies, and what I'm using is from the tip of my fingernail to my thumb joint here, and that way all the flies look the same. So I'm just going to pull out the marabou, measure up with my thumb and take off what I need. And there's plenty left on the feather for a few more flies. So when I get to the end, I'm going to give it a little twist and then remove the waste. The twist just means it all stays together and doesn't float around my dining room and cause mayhem later with the wife. So I've got the marabou off, and I'm going to lay it onto the shank. Now I want to have a good quarter of an inch, space at the front here, because there's going to be some booby eyes going in there. So I'll bring that back to approximately where my thread started. Then with all these flies, I like to pinch the marabou tail, because I want this fly to be competition legal, and that brings me on to the name of the fly. So every year I have a little friendly competition with a friend of mine, Jock Kettles. We've been doing it for an awfully long time. We didn't get to do it last year because of COVID, and I fear that it'll be the same again this year, unfortunately. But he's an amazing angler and a great buddy, so I thought I'd do a fly in his honour, and a bit tongue-in-cheek really, call it the Kettle Buster, because I think I would be using this to great effect in the spring to try and win that KitKat Cup. So sorry, I've digressed. I've just added my silver rib. This one is from Fish On. It's a silver wire at 0.14, nice and bright, and I've added that in there. The next thing I'm going to do is add my body, and that's just some 3mm green chenille, and I'm just going to try and pluck some of the fibres at the end to expose the core that you see there, and then I'm going to capture that in. Bring my thread all the way to the front, and before I go on, I'm just going to add a little bit more wax, and then I can bring my body material up. Yeah, over the years we've tussled for a little mug that Jock picked up some years ago, and it's been a right laugh. And one of the boys a year or so back made a little plinth that we put a little plaque on. Very childish, but great fun. So I've brought the body up again. I've left about quarter of an inch before the eye, a couple of turns to lock the material in, then another couple of turns in front, and then I can remove my waste, or wait, let's not waste, that'll do for another fly. So next then, I'm going to add in a hackle to this fly, and what it's all about really is it's not because it makes it look nice. The hen hackle that I'm going to use here, it adds movement to the fly, and that's what this fly is all about, movement. Any of my lures, I'm always thinking, am I going to get the best movement out of it? So I've already picked a feather and I've cleaned up the ends, so I've got a bit of stock there, and I've probably left a little bit too much stock, so I'm just going to trim that. I want about 1/8 of an inch, and where I've waxed my thread, that should just hold in there nice. So make sure it's clamped right down. With the wax it's going nowhere. Then you can bring in your hackle pliers, which I haven't cleaned for the last lot that I did, and grab the tip. Now what I like to do when I'm doing these palmerins, I like to just break the back of the stem so that it behaves for me. Don't snap it, obviously, you don't want too much pressure. Just drop that there, just come and pick that up again. Yeah, it's hackle pliers are a love-hate relationship. Sometimes if you put too much pressure on, it snaps at the stem, or it slips out like it did with me, but it's not a problem. As I often say, it's not a race. You just simply just connect it up and start again. Easy peasy. So as I come round for my last turn, I can grab my wire rib to catch in the hackle, and I'll just remove that now. Keeping tension on my wire rib, I can then come back up through the hackle to hold it into place, and this is pretty secure, so even after several fish you'll still find that your palmer's going to survive. And I'm going to bring that up to meet my wire on this side. Two or three turns to hold the wire in place, a couple of turns in front. Then I was reaching for my scissors there, but never cut wire with your scissors. Always keep tension on your thread and twist it away, or you'll end up with blunt scissors fairly quickly. Now, for some reason I seem to have lost the end off, there it is, the hackle, so I'm going to just come in and remove that. There we go. So that's looking pretty good, and you can see even with my fingers just running through the hackle there, the amount of movement. You can imagine that in the water as you're retrieving it, pulsing back. Looks amazing. Okay, so to make my life a little bit easier when I attach my booby eyes, I'm going to wet my thumb and forefinger in my left hand and just start to slick everything back. Get all the loose fibres out the way, and then I'm going to build a base station, if you like, for where my booby eyes are going to go on. So I've already made my little tic tac. Now if you follow my videos, you'll know that I have another video that shows you how I make these little tic tac eyes, and if you haven't seen it, I'll stick a little link up in the information bar there, and you can have a look how I get to this point. So basically I've got a little tic tac, and I'm going to catch it in on my thread. Sorry it's out of focus, but that can't be helped. And then once I've got it in position, I can wind up my booby eyes onto my fly. Now when I bring them on top like that, I want to make a figure of 8 motion. I tend to do 4 or 5 turns each side. And then I can come in a few turns in front, grab my whip finish tool, and whip finish the fly. And I've just got visions of this fly working really well with a washing line, with a few dial backs up from it. I think it will be outstanding. So I'm not finished yet. What I want to do is also add a hot spot to the fly. So what I'm going to do is open up my vise and turn it round. And I'm going to use some Trout Lines neon green resin. But before I do that, what I want to do is add a little bit, I've just got a little, there we go. I'm going to use some Solaris Bone Dry just to give me a bed to put the resin on. So I'll just bang that in there like so. Give it a blast with a torch. I mean, this isn't really necessary. I'd be quite happy fishing this fly as is, but it just adds a little something to it. I did another video called the Hotspot Booby, and again, if you missed that, I'll stick a little link up there for you. But it's a great little attractor for the fish. Another hit spot or hot spot, whatever you want to call it. So I'm just using my dubbing needle here, which I've now got fluff all over, and I'm going to use that to pick up a tiny little bit of the resin. That was a wee bit too tiny, so I'll just go back a little bit more. And I'm fairly happy with that. Now just bear with me while I put the lid back on. I don't want green UV resin all over my jeans. Then come in and give it a zap. And just to finish it off, I like to go over it with some plain UV resin. I think it just makes it pop a bit more when you add the clear coat of resin. Okay, I'm fairly content that that's dry now. Bring my vise back round to the right way, and with all my boobies I like to just add a little bit of super glue between the eyes, with a brush, and then I'll leave that to dry, and that makes it really robust. So there we go, the Kettle Buster. I sincerely hope I get to fish with Jock this year and things return to some modicum of normality, but I have my doubts. I hope you enjoyed that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please think about clicking the little button there. I would really appreciate your support, and I'll see you all next time.